Welcome back to Depreciation Nation. Today we are thrilled to have Mr. Fred Ashmore back on the channel. Now, last time he was here, we talked about Cannonball, but lately you might have seen him pop up over on hgtv or Street Outlaws, which is currently airing as this is filmed. So welcome back. Last time we had a great conversation, so we're going to kick this off by asking you what you've been up to.
Oh, what have I been up to? Well, first of all, it's great to be back. It's always nice to sit down with guys like you and just, talk about what's going on. A lot of things going on, a lot of things actively in TV with me. Not a lot I can talk about. We're getting ready to do some filming in the next month or so for certain episodes to be out later on this year. We're working on our own stuff, to have something done here in Oklahoma. That's going really well. For the most part, just doing the car stuff right now, keeping Danny going in school, keeping April busy, buying cool cars, buying cool trucks, doing some flips. Haven't been doing a ton of traveling, but I get some really cool stuff going on in the shop right now. People will know sooner than later. It'll all be out soon. So really, I've been doing my day-to-day stuff. Trying to get some irons in the fire. My brother and I are building a Baja 1000 truck. Probably do the 500 first. We're hopefully going to do that later on this year. And just at the grindstone. People ask me every day, what do I have for a job? And I tell everyone I don't have a job, but I work every day. So that pretty much sums up what I'm doing. And ask away. And the best thing is probably just to ask questions and I'll answer what I can or elaborate where I can.
Now, recently, if you don't follow Ashmore Speed and Performance on Instagram, make sure that you do that. Link to his Instagram is down in the description. I saw that old Trans Am that you got. So that kind of stoked my emotions and got me a little excited because, well, it's from my era. So what are your plans for that? And how did you get it and what's the overall story?
So the story is really interesting with the car because I never intended on just buying a Trans Am. Every morning, every night, I'm on Marketplace and I surf the entire country, coast to coast, north to south. All the 100-mile radiuses I look at. I look at certain things. And locally, the Trans Am popped up. And it really was an obscure title. It said, parts for sale, basically to fit a Trans Am. And as I looked in the description, it started talking about a Daytona pace car. And the price was really, really reasonable. It was $1,200. And I was like, $1,200. They said, there's no way that this car is $1,200. This must just be because there was a plethora of new old stock parts, new old stock dashes, brand new gauges, aftermarket autometer gauges, extra radiators, extra shifters, extra just tons and tons. There was a new intake, new carburetor, new headers, new exhaust. And so I decided to hit this guy up and say, hey, is this for the car or does this stuff just fit the car? And so the guy goes, no, the car is pictured. And I said, okay, well, I'm just double checking. I don't want to get there thinking I'm buying a car and wind up with a bunch of, they aren't bad parts. The parts were more than worth what the asking price of the car was. And so him and I talked back and forth and just in a few messages. And he says, yeah, he goes, I want $1,200 for everything. And I talked to him about it a little bit. And he says, you show up with $1,000 and bring a truck and we'll load all this stuff up. So I took my ramp truck over and first time I took the Galaxy. What did I take over? I think I might have taken the Hawaiian Tropic over. And nice. The guy saw the car. I did take the Tropic over now that I remember. And the guy said, I was hoping you would bring this over. And apparently he's a huge aficionado of the Cannonball. He loved the car. He had creeped me really hard online, and he had seen the car and he was hoping I'd bring it by. So I brought the Laguna over to to check out the parts and stuff. And everything was as advertised. Everything was new in the box. What had happened is his family had owned the car. It's made its way down Route 66, and one day the car just stopped running. And that's the early diagnostic system. And
Right.
with bad diagnostics and stuff, people back then just used to throw parts at everything. Well, this guy couldn't get a real diagnosis on it, so he just decided he's going to swap this thing over to a carburetor, because back then carburetor was the answer to everything that was fuel injected that was broken. So he just threw up in a Jake's catalog. Like, if it fit the car, it came, and it just kept stacking and stacking up. And he just decided that it was time to let the car go. And he had somebody else interested in it, but they just never came back. So the real neat part about the car is they ran one of these Daytona pace cars in the 83 US Express. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people asked up front, is this the car? Because I have a tendency of finding the weird ones. And it wasn't. However, I did have some fun, and I chased some cars out and got a hold of the original guy who ran the car in 83 from the US Express. I apologize, his name slips my mind right now. And he told me that they had bought the car new, the guy who ran it in the 83 Express in upstate New York. And it was his wife's car, and eventually they traded it in, but he missed it so much, he went and built another one identical to the one he raced, and then he sold it. So the original car was long gone. Mm-hmm. And another friend of mine in the Massachusetts, Connecticut area hooked up with me and thought he knew where the car was. So through this quasi relationship with the Trans Am that I never expected, I wound up chasing out cars and mm-hmm. Trans Ams, especially, that would fit the bill. And I wound up finding the car that was raced in the 83 US Express. And it changed hands a bunch of times, and I chased it back to where it was sold, which was where that gentleman had bought it from. So through some research and stuff, I found the original Trans Am, but it's not a car I'm in love with. And it would be fun to own it, but it's not my bucket list car. It's not mm-hmm. something I would put all my resources into. So lo and behold, I loaded up this car, I brought it home, and really there's nothing wrong with the car. It has a fuel pump issue with it, and that's really the only thing wrong with the car. The guy drove the car regularly, and it just died. It's got a bad fuel pump in it. So I changed all that stuff out. I got the car running, and the one thing I noticed when I picked up the car was the guy used to have the car stored somewhere. Mm-hmm. And he went and picked up the car, brought it home, had it in his garage for years. And I crawled underneath of it to see how much rust was under this thing. I'm like, man, this thing's relatively clean. Well, about that time, I bumped the exhaust pipe. I was like, that's weird. The whole thing's all afloat. Somebody stole the catalytic converter off it. So this guy didn't know for like 10 years that somebody stole the cat off this car and just sawzalled it off. So just fortunately enough, he had bought all new exhaust for it to eliminate the cat and all that came with the car. So my plans for the car is I originally planned on running it in the Southern Classic this year, which I will not be participating in. And I think really what I want to do with it is maybe relive its past. And nice. the gentleman that owned it did Route 66 in it. And my wife and I have spoken several times about doing Route 66. And I'm pretty fortunate. I got some cool cars I managed to collect, and I usually don't get attached to any of them. But we thought maybe we'll take this car and kind of put it in the trim as it was run in the US Express, and her and I will take a week or two and go up and run Route 66 one end to the other in it. So that's the general premise of the car. And from there, probably, it'll find a new home, and we'll move on to another project and another adventure.
Will we be able to watch it progress like we did the Hawaiian Tropic?
Oh, definitely. As I do things, I try to document it, because a lot of people out there that build their stuff don't build their stuff.
Yes.
They have somebody build it. And so all of a sudden, here's my pile of junk. Oh, well, here's my finished product. And I don't like doing that. I like people seeing that I'm the guy who builds the motor. I'm the guy who, changes the rear differential. I'm the guy who, does the work on the vehicle. Occasionally I'll have somebody help out, like, BJ did with the paint. That was something he really wanted to do. I was more than happy to help him. But I liked people to see that I actually build my own stuff. So like any of my cars, we're gonna document the build. We may do some time-lapse videos. And as the car progresses, the weird part about this one is it's not going to change a lot. So what you're going to be able to see isn't going to be majorly obvious on camera, but we'll go through and we'll put all new tires in it, go through the entire motor, do compression checks on it, make sure everything's running fine before we go on the trip, probably do all the brakes and stuff on it, and just go through the car as it needs to be, replace the stuff with the parts that the gentleman bought. Because I have no intention of putting a carburetor on this car. To me, it's blasphemy. It's crossfire injection. And I know everybody hates it. And me, I'm just that guy that I would rather have it run with crossfire injection than chop it up, make a mess out of it. Because the crossfire injection is highly misunderstood. If you want to hot rod something, don't use crossfire injection. But for a stock application, it's really fine. And these cars ran pretty well for what they were. I think if I remember correctly, the guy in the US Express said he ran this in the 120s, low 130s, which anybody's ever been in one of these things, that's plenty for this car under stock trims. So I'm going to put it back the way it belongs. We'll go through all that. We'll probably put some paint on it. It's a little rough in a few spots, and that's really what we're going to do with it. We're going to make it so it's another video on Ashmore Speed and Performance. You guys can follow the build start to finish, and just I'll click it and watch it, and tell me you like it, tell me you hate it. I got broad shoulders. I've been called a lot of names by a lot of people, and I'm fine with that. So check it out, and hopefully you guys like it when it's done.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us again. Remember to follow him. Again, a link is going to be in the description below, and we'll talk to you soon.